Okay, so just got out of delivering some parcels and just driving home. It's a terrible day today, lots of rain, but I'd like to talk about change in Japan.
Let's go back home.
More specifically, I'd like to talk about the frustrations that many foreigners have about change in Japan, and a lot of people just don't understand how it works here. So if you have a look at Western culture and Japanese culture, if you have a look at the political sphere, change primarily driven by politics, and in our culture, a politician or a political party wanting to get into power will always advocate for change in our culture. So even if things are going really well, they will still say this is what I will do differently, and change is what we need, and change for the better, and it's change. That's what sells the voting in our culture, because people expect change. People aren't used to things going along as they are. In Japan, it's totally the opposite, and that's why politics doesn't change much in Japan, and that's why there's not ever much change happening in Japan. If a politician wants to get up from a rival party and they're going to say the usual things that we hear in our culture, that they're going to change this and change that, they would never ever get voted in. So the dilemma in Japan is it's pretty much had the same political party for the last 70 years, and this is the reason, because an opposition political party can't get up there and say, well, I'm going to do exactly what the other person's doing, can they? So there's really there's no incentive for somebody to vote another party and maybe create a lot of change, because advocating for change is not what you do if you want to get a little bit of political power. One thing you have to be when you move to Japan, or especially rural Japan, is you need to be observant, and when you don't speak the language like a native, your observation skills improve. And if you just sit back and observe, there's lots of little things you can pick up. So in this instance, what brought this video on, I've done a couple of other videos on change, but what brought this one up is a lot of my customers, I'd say 95% of customers are aged between 40 and 70. So if you look at the demographics in Japan, that's probably 70% of the population anyway. So it's a good sample size. And my customers not only come from the rural areas, they come from the city as well. So what I've noticed is in pretty much all aspects of life, cars, clothing, things like this, even when ladies go out and buy new clothing, it's very similar to the clothing they're replacing. And what brought this video on, I hope it doesn't upset my wife, is I dropped her off clothing shopping today, and she bought new clothes. And I couldn't tell the difference between the old ones, to be honest. It was exactly the same fashion, colours, everything was the same, but it was just a bit newer. And I noticed that with the ladies in the cafe as well, there's a certain style that it may change slightly or whatever, but there's a certain style that they like, and it just lasts a long time. And it's not like in the West, where you have fashions that are sort of, they go for a couple of years at max, you know. The Japanese style sort of last decade sort of thing. And a classic example is the striped shirt. So there's a striped shirt, it's a classic, it's actually a British naval shirt, old British naval shirt, and it's white with blue stripes. And I'll just show you this now. So here's a miniature shirt that I hang up in my cafe, and believe it or not, 95% of women own one of these stripy shirts here in Japan. And I kid you not, 95% of Japanese women own one of these shirts. And I had my cafe only open on weekends during the lockdowns, and when I went to reopen again, I reopened again for Fridays. So my cafe's open Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And what happened with my cafe is my regular Friday ladies that used to come regularly, since they couldn't come for a couple of years on the Friday, and they couldn't come on the weekend because they had kids at school or whatever, I pretty much lost these customers. So they got out of the habit of probably going to restaurants at all. But I thought, what am I going to do for Fridays? Because when I opened, I had one table, and next week was the same. I thought, oh my god, it's going to be almost impossible to get this Friday back up to where it was, because Friday in the cafe was my busiest day. And I was sitting there and I'm thinking, I thought, what am I going to do? And I come up with this idea that any lady that came to my cafe on Friday and she wore that striped shirt, which I know 95% of women have, they would get a free freshly cooked bread. So they'd come and have their normal meals, and I'd give them a gift of freshly cooked bread, and I cook the bread in front of them in the oven before they leave, so it's nice and hot, and they take a really nice freshly cooked bread home with them. And it took me only 2 or 3 months to get my Friday up to my busiest day, and it's still my busiest day in the cafe. And this was just on my knowledge of what I was saying about no change. This shirt is ubiquitous with the 1980s Japanese fashion, and it's still going strong. It's 2024 now, and everyone still owns one and everyone still wears one. So if you walk anywhere in Japan, if it's not winter, and just observe, you'll be absolutely shocked the amount of women that actually wear these striped shirts. So it's not just the political sphere that they don't like change, but same with fashion and food. I'm sure in 200 years time, the Japanese dishes that everyone eats today are going to be pretty much the same. They're pretty much the same as it was 100 years ago. The food trends don't change drastically, the fashion trends don't change drastically, and societal trends don't change drastically. And this is the way they like it, and foreigners can't understand it because they actually don't really understand our own culture. Our own culture is based around change, and people will think change is always better. It's not always better, but it's expected. You can't go to a new company and a new job and say, I'm going to do exactly what you do. You know what I mean? Everything that happens is expected on change, and it's not necessarily for the better, but you can't sit in an interview and tell the boss that you're not going to change anything. It's just not going to happen. But in a interview here, for example, you're going to see how you're going to be part of their no change. They're going to keep doing what you're doing, and do it as well. You know, they're not going to say that they can do this and they can do that, and I can do this for you and I can change this for the better. These people don't get hired. And what happens with a lot of foreigners, especially on little things, they might pick a little topic that is obviously not done really well here, and they'll start pulling their hair out. Why do they do this like this, and why do they do this like that? And they just can't accept it, that people like things the way they are, even if they're not 100% perfect. And you have these big city thinkers, and they're coming from Western countries, and they think they're coming to Japan to enlighten people, and they don't really even have a basic understanding of their own culture, which is a culture of change. Even if it's not good change, it's expected. Here it's not expected, and you're not expected to be vociferous about changing things and trying to make your impact and make yourself out to be better than everybody else. And foreigners have a very hard time with that here. So I sort of think of certain things as sort of being done half-assed, so to speak, and things can be done better or whatever, but I'm a bit more knowledgeable about the culture here than to get upset about things and be vociferous about little things, because generally, you know, 99% of life here is perfect. Well, as good as it can be anyway. I've seen politicians in the West, in Western countries, and probably realistically they've done a good job maybe over their 4-year term or whatever, but they'll still get up and up when they're up for re-election and say what they're going to change, even though they had their time in their 4 years. They can't get up there and say, no, I'm just going to do exactly what I did. And even if what they did was good, people are not going to vote for them just for that reason. They're going to be seen as somebody that's not progressive and not forward thinking and all this sort of stuff. And people are sort of conditioned to want to hear that from people, and it doesn't matter what it is. It doesn't matter what situation you're in. If you're not advocating for change, you're not really thinking, you're not progressive, you're not all these sort of things, and that's expected in our culture. And it's quite funny when you live here for 5 years and you sort of don't really think about these things when you're living in your country, but it's absolutely true. And when you're living in your country, you don't really think about these things, but when you're living over here, you do see this sort of attitude. You think, where did that come from? Oh, I used to think like that. And it's just how it is. I mean, it's not anyone's fault. It's where people grow up is where people grow up. But that's just how I see things. I think that's how the Japanese see things. And if you disagree maybe with what I'm saying, maybe go up to a recruiter or a manager of a company and say, would you hire someone who just sat in the chair and said, you know what, I'm not going to change anything, and I'm just going to do exactly how it's done. Just gauge their reaction. And even recruiters expect the person they're hiring to change them or to change their institution and stuff like that. It's quite bizarre, really, because if you were to hire somebody, most of the time you're hiring someone to do a job that you already know how it should be done, and what skills they should have, and etc, etc, etc. So you're really hiring someone to fill a hole for a job that you've created that you should know everything about. But to have some new guy coming off the street that you don't know, and they're going to radically reorganize your business that they know nothing about, seems quite hilarious, but that's the way we do things, isn't it? Okay, so heading back. I can barely see out the windows. A classic example of what happens in Japan, and it's quite a true observation, is they use a lot of plastics and unnecessary wrappings and things like this, and people talk like the Japanese are wasteful and they don't know about recycling and they don't know about this, they don't know about that. Well, it's ridiculous, because they probably know more about recycling than anybody else. It's probably the most strictest country on recycling, but they still buy these products that have excess wrapping and things like this, and it's totally cultural, and it's to do with no change as well. If you're giving a gift to somebody, it's not a gift unless it has copious amounts of wrapping and plastic and all the good stuff on it. It no longer becomes a gift. The whole gift giving thing, and nice boxes and nice wrapping and presentation, this is all cultural. This is nothing to do with not having an education in recycling. And people pull their hair out and try and talk and get change happening in Japan and stuff like this. This is cultural. It's got nothing to do with education, and these sort of topics at the wrong angle. Something that's cultural can't be changed. Something that's a lack of education can. So people know that it's a waste to have so much paper and bags and things like this. But if you're buying a gift for somebody, don't go putting it in a recycled wrapper and giving it to them. It's just not going to work out for you. So we have a lot of the usual suspects about the environment and sustainability and all this sort of stuff, you know, that are living here in Japan, and they think that they're going to bring some education and enlightenment to Japan. It's absolutely laughable, you know, and it doesn't matter how many decades they live here, they just still don't get it. And it's, you know, when you watch these people, it's actually comedy. It's sad, really, that they're going to change things, because as I said before, change doesn't happen in Japan, and whatever change there is, it is very slow. These type of foreigners that live here, that advocate this sort of stuff, think of it as this, like this. If a foreigner were to come to your country and start preaching that you shouldn't change everything and you should keep things the way they are, and all this stuff is no good and this is bad about your culture, how are you going to feel towards this person? You're going to feel exactly the way the Japanese feel towards foreigners that do this sort of stuff, and they don't have any self-reflection. In many cases they're not educated themselves about what they're talking about, and they have very, very little idea how it works culturally, because they haven't changed their mindset at all. One of the first videos I did on my channel is I interviewed 3 generations of ladies in my area, and it's still on the channel. It's one of the first videos if you scroll back, and it was a young lady in her 30s, her mother and her grandmother, and I interviewed 3 of them, and had a translator with me, and I asked them what has changed in the last 85 years, because the grandmother's been in this area for 85 years, and she said nothing, but I used to have a cow. So the 85 years in my area, it's been pretty much the same, but the old lady said that that she used to have a cow, like that was like a really big difference, you know, living out here in the countryside, that she had a cow, that she owned a cow, and now she doesn't, but everything else is the same. And I asked the youngest one too, and I said, has anything changed since you were in primary school? And she said no. So that's how it is. So what I'm experiencing now, probably apart from driving a car instead of a horse, is how it was in Japan 140 years ago. Not a lot's changed. And I've got a painting outside, inside my cafe, that was painted in 1976. So that's almost 50 years ago, and it's of the skyline from that window. And I'll just show you a picture of it now. So here's a painting painted 50 years ago from this exact place in my cafe. Nothing's changed, has it? So even the skyline hasn't changed a lot. So this is a lesson that things don't really change a lot culturally, and how it's done. And I'm sure the gift giving thing and everybody giving each other vegetables and all the stuff that goes on in my area or whatever hasn't changed. The Kairon bun system with the folders passing around information, that hasn't changed either. That's over 100 years old as well. So not a lot changes here. So just got to be mindful that it's serious. Like, to suggest change is not something that they haven't thought about. It's something they don't want. So some people get the impression that they're trying to enlighten people, but really they're just showing their ignorance, and it's very cringy. So anyway, over the weekend I had a couple of subscribers come, and here's a bit of footage with them with Gigi. We've got some subscribers here, and they're checking out the channel mascot, the Jigster, the legend himself. And I also had Lawrence's wife. Lawrence has the Koko Lencho Japan channel. He's a friend of mine, and his wife came up to Nagano to see her friends, and she popped into the cafe too, and she had some lunch, and she brought some gifts from Lawrence, and here they are. Gift from Lawrence. You're a legend. There's a reason why this is almost finished and this one's finished. Smoky, crispy, barbecuey goodness. Beef jerky. Beautiful. Once again, Lawrence, you're a legend. So shout out to Lawrence at Koko Lencho Japan. Your gift of the saucy, tangy barbecue chips and the jerky, man, that's what dreams are made of. So while I had Choco here, I got her to check my windows, because she's been doing all the window checking down at down at Lawrence's place. So we have Koko Lencho's wife here, and she's come for not only to have a calzone, but she's come to check our windows out and make sure that they slide properly. So, so you had a good time?
Yes, I did, and it was delicious.
And what did you eat?
I ate garlic shrimp kazan.
Garlic shrimp calzone.
はい。
Oishi desu ka?
美味しかったです。
Hi, and here's some footage of the window opener, window closer herself. So this video has gone on long enough.
And as always, hope you like the video.
Let's go, go.